Hello, hello.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Okay, so I know this was advertised as a fireside chat, but I can assure you we're not going to start a fire and going to keep it safe. So I am Kara Posner. I am a partner at Giannuzzi Lewenden. We are the only law firm in the world that specializes just in representing founders in the CPG space. Over the years, we've had the privilege of working with some of the first early movers in the space, those brands that really signaled that the grocery aisles were about to change, that consumers were going to have more choices, healthier choices, more sustainable choices. Vitamin Water, Smart Water, Vita Coco. We worked a lot with brands that showed that women are here to innovate. Happy Family, Miyoko's Kitchen, Mary Ruth's. We are located in the Meatpacking District just down the road. We have an office in Santa Monica, and we're so excited to be back with Founder Made in person, seeing all of your beautiful faces. We feel like Founder Made in our law firm is the most perfect fit because we work with founders all day, every day. It's what we love, and so we're just so glad to be here. And with that, I'd like to ask this wonderful founder, Lisa, to give a brief intro of herself and Chroma, and then we're going to get into some very interesting topics that I promise you want to hear more about.
Thank you, Kara. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. And as you said, Kara, it's so nice to be back in person. I've been with Founder Made in that family for 10 years, or since they started with my last brand. So it's fun to be here with my new brand. Can you guys hear me okay? I know it's loud, but okay, cool. So I'm the founder and CEO of Chroma Wellness. Hopefully you guys got a chance to try some of our product or learn from my daughter. And we're doing lattes, cookie butters. We launched the company 11 months ago, so we're still very new. It's my second company in the nutrition space. I've been in the industry for about 14 years. I had another company called Beaming, and we had organic cafes all over Southern California. So we took that concept, and we really wanted to reach people everywhere doing non-perishable functional nutrition. So 10 months ago, 11 months ago, we launched 19 products, everything from adaptogen super lattes to bone broths to superfood snacks to elixirs to everything, as well as a 5-day reset. So super excited to be here. We're going to have a fun chat about raising money. So anyone who is raising money and what we did and our strategy around angel investors, how we've used them for our go-to-market strategy. So I think it should make for a good conversation.
Definitely, definitely. And I think we can start there. You talked about launching 19 products at one time. I don't know if I've ever heard of that. Can you talk a little bit about your pre-launch efforts, how much efforts you put into your beta testing, and what you learned in that process, and what you changed?
So we launched with 19 products, and for those of you who are founders, I don't recommend that. Not an easy thing to do. My daughter, who's sitting in the front row, she and I actually formulated all 19 products ourselves in the kitchen. And part of that was in raising money is we actually did a beta trials. And we'll probably go into more details in another question around that. But it was during the pandemic. We had to be really savvy. And so she and I got in the kitchen, created the products, created the 5-day reset, and started putting those out into the community of my friendships and their friends and sort of this whole network of people that ultimately became investors. I have one of them in the room. There might be a couple others here too, but so anyway.
Yeah, and one thing that leads into is what you talked about earlier is raising money. So it's very near and dear to my heart, this topic, because I happen to spend all day, every day helping founders raise money. It's a necessary thing that you have to do when you grow a brand. So to date, you've raised over $8 million in outside capital, 90% of which is funded by women, well-known entrepreneurs, and A-list celebrities. Yet, and this is the crazy part, you've given away no special rights and no preferred equity. As someone who does this every day, I have to say, wow, well done. Don't see it often. What can you say about your approach? What has let you have so much success in finding money without having to give away the farm?
So I'm going to take that question and go backwards a little bit, because when we went to go raise money, it was literally we finished the business plan. The next day, COVID shut down the world. So we had to get really, really creative. Through that period of time, of course, no one was going to give money, no venture companies. Angel investors were curious, but it was a really hard time. So that's when my daughter and I worked on the betas, and I emptied my 401k, risked everything I had, and got a lot of no's, probably at least 100 of them. And on November 3rd, 2020, we got our first check from the former CEO of Twitter, Dick Costello. Our second check was from the former CEO of Blue Bottle Coffee. Our third one was the first check in Peloton from John Callahan. And our fourth was a woman named Jenny Lefcourt. And from there, none of those people I knew ahead of time, by the way. From there, they made introductions, and those introductions continued to expand. And it's actually a fascinating thing. So for anyone raising money and how we did this, it was really honestly going into my entire network, people I knew, people I didn't know, going on LinkedIn, asking anyone to make an introduction. That's always a hard thing to do, but how that's played out is that we have 100 investors, which we'll get into why we did that, and they have been a critical part to our success to date because they've helped us tell the world. And they've had, whether they are big celebrities, so we have Gwyneth Paltrow as an investor, Jessica Seinfeld, Amy Schumer, Greg Renfrew from Beauty Counter, Candace Nelson from Sprinkles. As Kara mentioned, we're 90% funded by women, but none of them I knew ahead of time. And a great story that I love to tell specifically to the celebrity side of things, because it wasn't just celebrities. Yes, the celebrities have been amazing and hugely supportive, but it's also all the moms in the community that help tell the world. So they don't all have to be celebrities. They just have to be passionate about what you're doing. And as Kara mentioned, we didn't give any special rights. Everybody invested because they loved what we're doing. They loved the product, they loved the vision, they saw what we were doing, and they wanted to get behind us. And that is just such a critical part, because I've been on the other side where I raised money for my last company. I raised about $5 million, and I didn't have the same passionate investors. And money is not just money. You really want money from people who are gonna get behind you, champion you, tell the world, and really just be excited to be part of it with you. And that's been such a huge part of our success. I will tell you one other funny story, so as I was raising money, again, very difficult time, we had raised half the money. It was February 2021, and I was a Sunday morning, and I woke up crying, and I was like, I'm so tired. I want this company to launch. It's our time. And it's, you guys have raised money. It's not easy. And so it's just having one of those founder moments, those entrepreneur moments. And I get a text from one of our investors, Melody McCloskey, if you know her. She's the founder of Style Seat. And she says, check your email. And I go to my email, and there's an email from Gwyneth Paltrow saying, and Lisa, you know what a big fan of yours I am, which I did not know. So that's nice to know. I heard you have a new wellness company. I'd love to hear about it. Can you come over to my house and tell me more? So obviously that was a very big moment. I screamed, right? And it was just really sort of all of those things just happened organically, because of the products and the brand that we were building and people really believing in it.
And that's such a testament to patience, which is something that's hard to do when you're raising money. We've seen so many founders and clients get frustrated when a negotiation is going on, and eventually it stalls. But at the end of the day, most of the time, by being patient, you'll get the right investors and you'll get those other opportunities that make more sense. And in your case, give up a lot less in the process.
Can I say something to that, Kara, too?
Of course.
So, yes. So just adding on to that, as we were raising money, we had actually one investor who had come in and said he would give us all the money. He cried to me how the products had changed his life. He was going to be in this with us. We were going to change the world together. Dragged this on for 3 months. The day he was supposed to fund, we never heard from him again. Literally disappeared and ghosted. That happens. I didn't know that. I didn't know people do that.
This happened to one of my clients 2 weeks ago. Thankfully, they're closing next week with someone better, but it happens. And yeah.
And the best thing that ever happened was him walking away. So that
Right.
was really the point. As she was saying, being patient. I actually, the day that the company launched last July, there was an article came out in Forbes, and it was a picture of me, Jessica Seinfeld, Amy Schumer, and Gwyneth. And it was this really great story. And I sent it to the guy, and I just said, thank you. Thank you for disappearing.
That's
and
awesome.
that was the close of that chapter.
That's amazing. Okay, so going to the title of our chat, I think this is what people are really curious about. Perhaps the most surprising thing that I've learned from you is that although you have on track to do $10 million in revenue in 2022, which is just incredible, you have spent hardly no money on paid advertising, even though you're a DTC brand. How do you do that?
So it goes back to the investors and having people who are really supportive. I mean, we think we've spent $50,000 on paid media to date. Now, that will change, but obviously the market has changed. D2C has changed. You have to be creative. You have to be savvy. You have to think outside the box on how to go to market. So two things really worked for us. One is obviously this great group of investors who really have continued to be champions. I communicate with them, you know, it used to be monthly, now it's quarterly. I not only give them updates, but I ask for things, right? So I'll ask for specific things. They hosted events around the country. There's so many things that we did to activate them. And then the other piece of it was just how we came to market. Because the way that we came to market with the 5-day reset is really our Trojan horse, right? People come into the program, they get to try all 19 products, they have great results, they feel good, they look good, and then they fall in love with the products and they want them all the time. So our business model was very unique, which is a critical piece. And then of course those investors became a really big part of that. And we're now in this next phase of kind of our transition into our marketing strategy and other areas that we're going to invest in. But when I built the company and built the business, I never wanted to build it being dependent on paid media. And I've seen, and especially now in the market, how devastating that is for so many brands. So hopefully we'll stay that way.
And one good point you make, given how your investor base is so heavily concentrated with celebrities, is that I feel like there's been a big shift in the last 2 to 3 years on how companies use celebrities. And there's kind of a shift away from the model where you have a contract that has a list of how many tweets they have to make and how many Instagram posts have to be in the story or on the grid, and you just let them in. And if they believe in the product, they promote it and they support it. If they don't, then they don't. And then you're not giving away all this cash, you're not giving away all this equity. They're investors, they're in. And I've seen a trend shift in that, and it's really nice to see it play out in such a huge way for Chroma. Okay, so I am a lawyer, so I do have to ask this question because one of the most interesting things you said to me as we got to know one another over the last couple weeks is, oh my God, Kara, I wish I had a you in my last company. What did you mean by that? It sounds very flattering, but what did you mean?
So I think one of the things that we don't necessarily, not that we don't think about it, but we might not make it a priority, especially in early stage, because we're being scrappy. And you know, lawyers, they cost money, but they cost money for a reason. And so because I've had another brand that was very popular with these, you know, beaming, I got to build a beautiful brand that people loved, and I got to learn some hard lessons. And the two hard lessons were I didn't have a great business partner that was a really strong operator who could do all the things that I'm not great at. And then the other side of it is we didn't have a really strong lawyer. And I cannot stress enough, and that's two parts of it. One, your own lawyer that's representing you and protecting you, critical. And the other one is, it's like, even just if you're doing photography, right? And you're thinking, we're gonna do a photo shoot, making sure that you've protected those assets, that those models aren't gonna change their mind and tell you that you no longer have assets. It sounds so silly because you go into a photo shoot thinking like, well, it's a photo shoot. I paid the money, I get him. It's so much more. Sadly, it's more complicated than that. And if you're raising money, obviously you want to make sure you've got really solid contracts. Everybody understands their rights. They understand what they get, what that exchange looks like, everything from hiring employees and those agreements. There's so much complexity to it. And then you go into food or beauty, right? And there's all sorts of FDA regulations. There's so many things. And one of the things, so my business partner is incredibly diligent and detailed. And so one of the things that he's done from the get-go is the FDA stuff, like what you can and can't say. Now, I'm the one that wants to break the rules. I want to say inflammation. I want to say all the great things of what these products are going to do for you. And you, as much as I want to say them, you sort of don't want to. Now, a lot of companies do. The risk to that, and you can probably speak better, but the risk to that is that later it might come back to haunt you. In fact, it 100% will. So we're playing by the rules now so we don't have to unwind things later. It's not the fun, sexy side of the business, but we built the company such that if someone wanted to buy us tomorrow, we were ready. All of our stuff is tight and detailed, and we haven't missed a beat just to make sure that we were set up for success.
Yeah, and you're so right. It's not if, it's when. There are literally lawyers, and they're not invited to this show, don't worry, that wake up in the morning, go to Whole Foods, go to Sephora, take pictures of all the newest brands, go home, write letters, and shake you down because they know what you can't say. So it's very important. And labeling review is, on the spectrum of things, actually pretty cheap. It might tell you things that you can't say that you want to say, and it might be disappointing. But it's a perfect example of how legal can really prevent a lot of heartache down the road. Another example is just looking at every contract you sign with that lens towards your next investment and an eventual exit. How is it going to hurt you? How is it going to help you? One great example I have in one of our more prominent M&A exits ever is that the client had signed a manufacturing agreement, said it was exclusive, eventually outgrew the manufacturer naturally because they had grown so much, and just started working with two other ones. Well, in the context of the exit, the manufacturing agreement said you had to get their consent. So we emailed them. They sense that there's hundreds of millions of dollars at play, and they say, well, you were exclusive, and you went with these other two. They had known about it for years, and they still demanded to be paid $30 million just to give their signature because some lawyer had missed. How will this hurt me in the context of my eventual acquisition? And this is buried. This is not the stuff that the entrepreneurs are going to read, and it's another example of how early legal can make a difference.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think we've got a few more minutes. I think it'd be good to give the audience an opportunity to ask some questions. So I don't, yeah, sure.
Okay.
I think she's going to bring you a mic, though. Yeah.
And you can ask anything. So anything we've talked about, haven't talked about, throw it out there.
So what do you think were maybe the top 3 things that helped you grow this fast with direct to consumer, like getting the product into your customers' hands?
What are the things that I think helped us grow so fast? Was that the question? Like
top three things.
Top 3 things. I mean, I think again that investor community was huge, and a lot of people might say, I mean, we have 100 investors, right? Like, and 10 of them are billionaires, right? Any one of them could have written the whole check. It was very strategic, and I thought ahead of time when we were raising money, especially because I had to be savvy. It was COVID, right? So not easy to raise money, and now it's actually even harder. So with what's happening. So my idea was, what if I could create, attract money from highly influential people, again, whether it's celebrities or someone in the community, bring them together almost in like this crowd-funded incubator. I hadn't seen it done before, but I thought it seemed like a good idea, and that they would, be our go-to-market strategy, and that really has played out so well. Obviously, the product. We have a phenomenal product. So I think that's the other thing, is huge differentiator in our products. The fact that Lexi and I created every product in the kitchen, we hand-picked the supply chain, we put the formulations together, the level of detail and thought that went into not only the product, but then the packaging, design, the branding design, like every one of those details has been very, very, very thorough. And I'd say the other piece is kind of goes back to sort of that just having, like really being tight about how you go to market. I have a great business partner. He's the operator, he's the financial side of things. With 19 products, it's very complex. We have 5 co-packers. So imagine how many contracts we've had to do. and so 5 co-packers. Now we're starting to do some of our own production. We have 175 ingredients coming from all over the world. Like so many complexities, but that's also part of what makes the product so special. So I don't know if that helps. And then I think the other, maybe there's like a 2.5 here. I think the other side is being smart about partnerships and who you align with, right? Just brand relevance, right? And just, you know, being in the right places, talking to the right people, being here today, you know, just getting your brand out there everywhere and anywhere that you can. We did events. A lot of our investors hosted events at different parts of the country. We still do those things. We, you know, you get scrappy, but like those go, every person, the way I look at it is like one person leads to the next person leads to the next person. So from a viral marketing or guerrilla marketing, nothing is more powerful, right? So to me, somebody telling someone is going to be the best way to build your brand. And that's really what we've done. Yeah. So.
Anyone else? Sure. Microphone, please. Or just scream.
Hi. So because it's so difficult to raise capital today, how do you go about finding strategic partners to come into the business and invest when rates are like so high and skyrocketing and investors are a bit more, don't have as much of a risk appetite as they did, let's say, 6 months ago?
So what stage are you,
A.
What's a?
A.
Series A. So, yeah, I mean, it's a weird time. We pulled our Series A, honestly. So we didn't ever launch it. We were going to do it in the fall, and we've pulled back because of the market conditions. And we're like, okay, we're gonna be even scrappier and smarter about how and when we raise money. Because to your point, like, there's been a lot of people got burned, people are scared. Money's still out there. Your story has to be really, really good. I mean, our KPIs are insane, right? But it's still that time that people are a little bit like uncertain, right? So if you don't have to raise the money right now, maybe don't, and see how long your runway is. I mean, profitability is king right now, right? So that's what we actually have been profitable this year, which is pretty incredible our first year. As we grow and continue to invest, I mean, there's a balancing act there. But I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it is a tricky time, right? But there's still money out there. I mean, I just got an investment yesterday, so.
Yeah, and one thing that we've seen a little bit of a trend of is as angel investors are nervous about what's happening in the public markets, they have to do something, and they're taking, you know, probably bigger risks than they might otherwise take with private companies. So we've seen an uptick, at least for some of our brands, in that angel market. It's more of a cobbling together. It's not your traditional lead, but there is still money out there for sure.
And we're doing a safe right now, right? So that's how we've done a lot of our raise. Today is through safes or notes. So maybe that's another way where you can get, you know, depending on how much you're raising, like smaller checks or sort of get that runway that you need. Yeah.
Yep. Anyone else? Sure. Here it comes.
Hello. First, I want to say I've enjoyed this panel the most out of all of them so far, so thank you for putting on a great discussion. And
thank you.
I tried your cookie nut butter earlier, and it was excellent, and it tasted like not too sweet, which I loved, and you could taste like all the whole ingredients. And the first thing I noticed too was the name chroma, which means like color, right, in Greek. So it's like you have this whole like spectrum of nutrition, which is great. My question is, as you've grown and raised capital, you have to allocate that capital to expand. How have you attracted the right team, the right people to drive this mission and really know that they want the best for Chroma and your mission?
I mean, it's the hardest part, 100%. It's like building your team. I mean, for me, having this business partner and having someone side by side, living and breathing in it as much as I am, 24/7, 7 days a week, has been huge. And we only have 6 full-time people right now. So everything we've done has been, either outsourced or, all of us are like rolling up our sleeves, wearing a lot of hats. Finding people is hard. I'm not gonna lie, but I think it's worth taking the time because I've had some bad hires, right? And those cost you a lot, right? And just in lost time, all those things. So I do think it's worth, whether you go through your network and you get referrals, right? I think headhunters can be helpful, but they're not gonna care about your business like you do. So a lot of our referrals have been going into our investor community and asking them for referrals. Right? I pretty much ask everybody I know, like, I'll start talking to someone in the hallway and I'm like, oh, by the way, we're looking for a head of growth in CRM. Do you know anyone? Like, that's how we hire.
That makes sense. Okay, I think we probably have time for a couple more.
And I'm going to be at our booth, which is here on this floor.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes.
So I just closed, I did a seed round of $2 million for the company I'm building, and I have great angel investors, and I have no idea how to effectively collaborate with them. And hearing how you're sharing about doing that, I'm like, would you be able to just share a few more examples of ways that you worked in relationship with your investors to kind of launch your brand successfully?
And it's a constant nurturing, right? So in the beginning, I mean, a lot of it was like, the email updates are huge. I give a lot of detail, don't I, Gigi, in my email updates? And it's a lot of like all the different, chapters of the business, and then just getting them excited, making them feel like they're part of it, right? The communication, sometimes it's texting stuff. I'm also not afraid to ask for help. And the reality is they want you to be successful. So sometimes as founders, we forget to like go to them and ask for things, and I still do, right? But I think it's leaning on them, bringing them in, asking for things, I went to Amy Schumer and I was like, hey, you love the porridge. Do you mind posting about it? And she's like, well, why don't I just do it before the Oscars and then I'll post about it after the Oscars? And I was like, that's cool. Like, that would be amazing. So it's like sort of just not being shy, but those communications are huge. And I think so often, and we're so entrenched in the business, we forget to talk to the people who have supported us. So that's a really important one.
It's a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Sure.
Hi. You mentioned, pre-launch when you were fundraising and kind of thinking about your go-to-market strategy, how having those influential or celebrity investors were kind of a key part of, jump-starting the growth. Was that always your plan from the beginning, or did that kind of just shape the business as you came across these investors? And if it was, how did you kind of go about targeting those specific people and bringing them onto your cap table?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned earlier that so raising money, the VCs all said no because it was pre-launch, pre-revenue. They're like very interested, but not until you go prove it. So the angels became sort of, like I said before, like what if I can bring this like incubator of really influential people who are passionate about what we're doing that would help us tell the world. So it was part of an idea. I had never seen anyone do it before, but it seemed like a good idea. So it did become. Now, what's important to note is I didn't know any of the investors beforehand. So it's not like I had this Rolodex or like I called Gwyneth and say, hey, can you invest? Like it happened because every single person I talked to, I either asked them if they would be interested or I asked them if they knew somebody that would be interested. And then I went on LinkedIn and I found interesting people. I saw people that would invest. I would go to them. And most of the time they wouldn't invest, but they would know somebody that would. And so it just became this really, in fact, I did this talk at Female Founders Collective and I showed this web of like connections, how one person led to these 4 people and those 4 people led to these. And it was fascinating because it was really only 3 people that then created that tree that led to all of the 100, none of which I knew beforehand. So it's just, obviously you believe in what you're building, you're passionate about what you're building, people want to know about it, I mean, Gigi's an investor in lots of companies and a founder. So, you know, I think that they want to support founders that aren't afraid to like go after what they need. Yeah.
Networking, networking, networking. It's not always easy, it's not always comfortable, but it produces results for sure. All right.
Well, thanks everyone. I'll be at the booth too, and I'll be mingling. So if you guys have other questions, feel free to stop me and happy to chat more.
Thank you.
Thank you.